Okay, y'all, this is a really short video I'm gonna do about Triplemanía. And I'm gonna just say, I watched Triplemanía and I'm not versed in all of the storylines in Triplemanía, and it made me think of this. Triplemanía felt like an episode of like Raw. I want to say Triplemanía felt like a good episode of Raw or SmackDown. And Triplemanía is like their WrestleMania. And I thought about it, I was like, this feels a lot like WWE. And it's because we don't have any good storylines or stories being told. And I was like, you know, that's what wrestling feels like now. There's no stories. There's no good plots. But one thing I couldn't give, you know, AAA is they actually have wrestlers with certain gimmicks. You know, they actually have characters. You know, when you look at WWE now, no one is really a character. You know, when Finn Bálor brought out his demon puppet and Mr. Iguana brought out, you know, his iguana, and they sort of fought, you know, that actually, you know, people will call it stupid, but it's those little things that makes wrestling fun. You know, if we think about Val Venus, Big Boss Man, Viscera, you know, Mankind, you know, all of these people were characters. Now, every wrestler is their own person. You know, Bianca, she's the EST. You have, you know, Rhea Ripley is like, they call her Mammy or Mommy. But then you sort of look at people like Roxanne Perez. You look at certain people like Liv Morgan, a Charlotte Flair, Chelsea Green, a Mishin, you know. And I mean, even if you go into the men roster, you know, Carmelo Hayes, Trick Williams, Sami Zayn, you know, all of these people are just people. They aren't characters. You know, Brock Lesnar is himself. You know, that's sort of his character. You know, Stone Cold was himself, but he was also representing every person that was sort of redneckish and didn't take, you know, crap from his boss. Okay? But you actually had characters back then. Gimmicks that you had to get over. WWE doesn't have anyone that's a gimmick. Everyone in AAA has a gimmick. You know, even if you don't pay attention to the story, you know, there's some character there. You know, and I think that might be the issue with WWE not having great stories, but then no one's a character. Okay. Jacob Fatu is the Samoan werewolf. What is that? You know, that's, y'all just labeled him that, but, you know, he's not a gimmick. You know, you can actually get over people right now in WWE if you give them a gimmick. You know, you can break up the Street Profits, and Angelo, you give him a gimmick, you know, he could be a soldier, you know, or he could be, you know, an executioner or something. Like, you can give him any gimmick and he will get over. Right now, if you go to WWE, have a gimmick that you can work good, you're okay. I mean, look at Goldust. He was a gimmick wrestler. He never got the WWE championship or nothing like that, but worldwide fame. He's Goldust. You know, somebody like Mike Awesome. Mike Awesome is a great wrestler for his size, but no one really, he's forgettable because there's no gimmick. You know, Mr. Iguana, you know, is over, you know, in the United States. Some people might disagree, but everyone knows Mr. Iguana because he has a gimmick. You know, right now, Dominic's gimmick is that he hates his dad and he's a super heel. So that's why Dominic is over. If Dominic would have just been himself, as far as I'm just another wrestler like really anybody else, he wouldn't be over. And that's the problem. You know, Braun Breaker, what is his gimmick? There's no gimmick. Honestly, Braun Breaker, if he doesn't switch it up a little bit, he's gonna be forgettable as well. Seth Rollins, he's a heel, but he really doesn't have a gimmick, but he's been in WWE so long, you know, somebody like Seth Rollins wouldn't even survive if he was there, you know, during like the Monday Night War and stuff. You know, I'm kind of off topic, but AAA, Triplemania was a solid episode of like Raw or SmackDown. You know, and it's mainly because the wrestling was good. That's the only reason. That is the only reason AAA was good. I mean, Triplemania was good. So, you know, I can't complain on that end, but, you know, other than that, I mean, there's nothing to really just be like, oh my goodness, it was so good. I mean, I would have loved to see Dominic Mysterio actually win that AAA title and, you know, give it a little bit more publicity, you know, going on tour with it. But AJ Styles, you know, messing over him with that. Honestly, I wish they would take AJ Styles and bring him to TNA and just leave the Dominic stuff alone. We don't want to see Dominic versus AJ Styles for the next like 9 months. You know, Dominic should have won that title, built up his reputation, because he needs that. Because I feel like Dominic can be a dominant force. You know, because Dominic is going to be in WWE probably for the next 10 years. 10 or 15. You know, build Dominic up as a megastar. You know, he can brag saying I had that AAA world title. But maybe he can get it again. But I mean, he had so much fire, you know, under his belt that he should have won. You know, that's what you do. And then maybe you can have that AAA title be defended at like Survivor Series or, you know, WrestleMania versus Dominic and let him lose it. And that's how you get more people checking out AAA, because Vikingo beat Dominic at WrestleMania for that AAA title. You know, that would have been perfect. But now you have AJ Styles come in there like, for what? AJ Styles won't ever be doing anything with AAA. I don't know who's booking this stuff. I'm pretty sure Triple H had a hand in this. But like I say, AAA Triplemania was a solid, I mean, it was a solid show. It wasn't like, oh my goodness, it was like the best thing ever. But it was a solid show. So I would say go check it out if you got time. You know, if you don't want to watch Monday Night Raw with their nonsense, go watch that. So I'm going to give AAA Triplemania. I'll give it a... it's really hard for me to give it a 7, but I'll give it a 7 out of 10. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. So go check it out.